Hey, we're
There we
live.
are.
Okay.
Hi,
Lori,
Lori.
hi.
Oh, bye, Lori.
Oh, no, Lori's
Hello.
gone. Hey, so we're live. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Dara's not in yet. There's a little bit of tech problems going on tonight. So,
Yeah.
So who wants to take the helm?
You can.
I can. Oh,
I don't
geez.
mind.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we've been talking about developmental stages all month, and tonight we're talking about the seniors, the older dogs.
Oh,
Oh,
did she
we
just
lost
disappear? Everyone's having tech problems
Happy
today.
Monday.
Oh, hello.
Woo!
Hello, Michelle.
Hi, sweeties. How are you guys
Oh, she's
doing?
back.
Ooh,
Good.
I just got bumped. It was some error thing. I'm like, okay.
Oh, you're back.
Michelle, it's so nice to see you.
So nice to see all of you.
Yeah.
Yay.
So we were
Dara's
just
on the
reviewing a
private
little
chat
bit.
Speaking.
Yeah, Dara's having trouble with the mic.
Yep.
But so this month we've been going over developmental stages, and we went through puppies, and we went through adolescents and adults, and now we're talking about seniors. Anyone want to jump in on that?
So old dogs, you need to be nice to them
And they're my
because
favorite.
they're sweet and they're
are.
old and they're mean all at the same time.
Yeah. We have a term for that. We call it decrepitude.
Decrepitude.
Decrepitude, that is so nice. What a great term.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're my favorite though.
They're my favorites.
They are my favorites. I've based most of my research and my grooming is geared toward them. So I specialize in geriatric and fear recovery.
Yep. That's where I'm heading in my grooming.
That's where I'm headed in my real life.
Yeah.
Wow. It is not a lie. Okay. Yeah. So here we are talking about old folk, dogs, I'm presuming, and cats and bats and rats, whoever you are actually grooming. I know that a lot of people do exotic pets nowadays as well. I think one of the main focuses that I just want to throw out there is make sure that you discuss with your client the needs of the pet for perhaps some pain medication and time to sleep when they go home. I think those are the two main disagreements or miscommunications that I hear over and over and over and over again. They have an old dog and the third one is they always want you to hurry. They want you to hurry because the dog's old. Well, then we need to slow down because the dog is old. You can't hurry. Can you imagine having arthritis and having someone hurry you through your ablutions? Please. That's terrible.
And potty breaks.
Potty breaks, yeah.
Potty breaks are so super important for those little old guys. Sometimes we don't know if they've been holding it for a long time or not. And
or if they can even hold it for that long.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can't hold it for that long. They end up peeing on your table and then you're like mad at them. You're like, I'm the one standing here with a loop on my neck. Can't go anywhere. You're in charge. How am I supposed to help that?
Well, and sometimes trying to explain that to our owners too. I think some owners, it sneaks up on them that their dog got old. They're just kind of out of touch with it. And I can relate to that,
Yeah, absolutely.
Just kind of feeling like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily get it. And also, reminding them like, oh, we're not doing poodle feed on her anymore.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. It's not going to be a perfect groom. It's going to be comfortable.
Yeah. We didn't nick those moles. All of those scabs around those old moles ooze, and that's why there's scabs near them.
Up, right?
Yeah, we're going to clean them up as best we can. We're going to trim around them. We're going to do whatever we can to keep your dog healthy. But if she goes home with oozy moles, well, just means they haven't crusted over like they were when they came in.
Right.
Well, that's what I recommend, that they use pure O3 ozonated oils on those, because actually you can get them to shrink a little bit and get them to exude less. I'm going to stay on this side of no, they'll make them all the way not exude. I have seen that. However, when you tell that to people, you have to say it helps, because then you're promising something that maybe you can't deliver. Maybe it's different for every dog. But
Interesting.
in a nutshell, that ozonated oil, the real kind, if it's really ozonated, you could ask them. It's cold processed, so no heat has destroyed the beauty and the nutrients of the oil that you're using. And
Ozonated oil.
correct.
Okay. Where do we get that?
You get it at Pure, PURO3. It's not 03, it's O3, the letter O3.com. And they sell little sample packets, little sample tubs, all the way up to 4 ounces. They just came out a year ago, with ozonated olive oil in tubes. So I don't know if they have extended that, but I always keep a jar of ozonated avocado oil in case I do come across those. And it's really good for putting on wounded under eyes, because it is body friendly and it's not going to harm you. You can get it in a variety of oils like olive, sunflower, hemp, avocado. They have quite a selection that they use with all different properties, of course, because of the oils. But that antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral component of ozone, you cannot go wrong with that. That is just an amazing tool to be in your box.
Oh, neat.
Cool. Lori's asking for that website again. Good, because I don't know how to type it in. Lori, if you want to type it in for us.
The only one that could do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's of course World Wide Web, Pure, PUR, O3, the letter O and the number 3.com. Excellent therapeutic oil.
Nice.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Sarah just
Thank
put it
you,
up there.
thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Neat. Yeah, I think that some of the things with old dogs, the ability to stand for a long time. I know a lot of the time owners are just kind of blind to some of the things happening. Like they don't realize their dog is going deaf. They don't realize their dog is going blind. Sometimes they're kind of surprised by those things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we're a little bit quick to think it's dementia, but dogs can get dementia. Absolutely can. And sometimes that shows up as some really weird behaviors, dogs that like walk into a corner and just start barking and get confused, even though they can see and they can hear. And sometimes it's kind of heartbreaking.
I think in all honesty, they're probably hallucinating. Like a fly bite seizure is the same way. They see motes or something in the air and they kind of look at all over or
floaters in their eye.
Floaters in their eyes.
eye. Yeah. In fact, that air biting, fly chasing thing. One of my dogs came to me doing that, and I trimmed the whiskers over his eyes, and he wasn't allowed to have those back until he grew up. He would see glimmers on his own little whiskers and like air snap, and
that is hilarious.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
now we can have those.
But the sun dapples across his hair so nicely.
Yeah, and he's like, I just want to chew on those and chase those all day. It looked totally neurotic, and it wasn't. It was, Yeah.
Well, I've got
Silliness.
2 geriatrics right now. I've got Bunny, who is probably headed into her 14th or 15th year, and she's aging so gracefully, but she is slowing down. I can tell sometimes she doesn't want to jump. She wants to be lifted onto the couch or the bed, and she's got plenty of ramps and stairs and blankets and whatever they need. But she's just starting to refuse to do some things like, I think that's going to hurt me. So could you? And then my other one that we got, she is newer to us. We've had her for under a year, and I believe she's around 9. But we found out she has seizures. So they're awful to look at, but as long as they don't last for 5 minutes, they're not drawn mauling. You're pretty safe. After discussion with many veterinarians, I have come to the conclusion that if you keep a small thin sock full of beans in your freezer, wherever you are, the danger of those seizures lasting a long time is that the blood heats up and it boils the brain. So what you want to do is lay that cold sock of beans around the neck area to cool it down as it passes through the neck, to cool it down if you find a seizure's lasting quite a long time. So that's another idea you can just keep handy if you're doing a lot of geriatric patients.
That's a great tip. I haven't heard that before. I know that if you've never seen a dog having a seizure, it can be kind of scary.
Yeah.
But like get a towel or something underneath their head or their body so they're not whacking their head on the floor, and start a timer. Like,
Do
just
not-
take note of how long this is
Do
happening.
not try to reach into their mouth.
Do not try to reach
Don't
into
do
their
it.
mouth.
Even if they're biting their tongue, just leave it.
No.
You can fix it later. But for right
Yeah.
now, just make sure they're not going to swallow any blood. Make sure the tongue is out, but don't reach in their mouth because they'll bite you and not know it.
Right.
Yeah. And they are going to be very confused when they wake up.
Yeah.
So even though Fluffy Muffinkins has known you for years, she's not going to recognize you when she first wakes up, and gently glide her out of that. One of my little old guys that I groom came to me last year as like a 14-year-old that she's just getting old, getting frail. She's a Bichon, but she had a seizure at the groomers, and they think that seizure led to a stroke. And I mean, just they're like, okay, she's really fragile now. Let's see what we can do for her, And I think it's, especially as they get older, like that one thing happens, but it just has a cascading effect on all sorts of body systems that are no longer functioning as they should.
Because we're all connected.
Yeah.
When one thing happens, and that's what I want to stress also, when one thing happens, even if it's on top of the skin is connected to everything inside of it.
Right.
So if you remember that, if something's happening on the skin, it absolutely does affect every single system within the body, and the same inside to the outside. The skin will show if something's happening on the inside as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and sometimes owners are kind of blind to it or numb to it. Like, oh, she's been like this for a long time and she's old. Like, but I would like for her to be more comfortable. Like we still have to, sometimes we have to talk owners into comfort, and other times we don't, but sometimes we have to say, but if we can help them be more comfortable, even if she passes away tomorrow, if I can help her be more comfortable, if we can do less and do it more often,
Right.
Somebody is saying in here, it took me, that link takes me to a clothing wholesale site.
Oh, I see why.
Probably
Because
because
it got
when
written
they
down
entered
as
it-
pure P-U-R-E. It's P-U-R.
Yeah, it's P-U-R, the letter O, the number 3.com. It is very confusing. I apologize. I don't work for them. They don't give me any money. That's just a really good product that I like to keep around. Yeah. I wish I could type in, but I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Yeah.
I don't know how to either. I'm looking at it and I can't.
Right,
I can't figure it out either.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a peon like myself,
We're
all we
just
can do is watch.
yeah,
okay with
we're
that,
just
though.
participants.
Right.
The cruise
I don't
director
mind.
is in there someplace doing
Right.
that.
Yes.
So another point I want to bring up about geriatric pets is that they may not have full range of motion anymore. So what you would normally consider a dog to have can bring its arms out sideways a little bit, its legs out sideways in a certain configuration. Elderly folks just cannot do those things anymore. They may be calcified. They may have scar tissue. They may have all kinds of joint problems or balance problems or weight problems. So you have to really, there you go. Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
P-U-R. Yeah, there we go. Yep.
So you have to really, as you put that dog on the table, if it can be safely put on a table, we've got rubber mats throughout our entire grooming area. And if we have to groom somebody on the floor, we absolutely do. Because they're too large, too old, too whatever. But once you get it on the table, before you do anything, you should examine the range of motion of that dog to make sure that you're moving them correctly. Because you may be asking them to turn around in the tub and they can't physically do it. You're going to have to help them. But how do you know that? Unless you just go through real quick, lift up all the legs, see what the range of motion is, see if anything is painful. That's really important when you're working with the elderly.
And also, as you're doing that, also decide if you can maybe start teaching this dog to lay on its side and do nails and pads, things like that. A lot of dogs are reluctant to do that because they've spent their whole life standing up straight. But if you're looking at a dog who's now 14 and going, I wonder if I can start working on that, if I have this dog for another 3 years or something, this dog is probably going to do better if I can teach this dog to lay down or to let me, do nails by dangling a foot over the side of the table while they sit, and just modifying what we do.
Even the ones that are so set on standing, just teaching them to sit, to give the hip area some relief as they're, standing there for too long.
And that is such
sometimes.
a great point, Katie, too.
Yeah.
In our industry, for some reason, there are a majority of us that
Yes.
teach that dog has to stand up through the entire groom. Stand up, stand up, stand
Right.
up. So if they don't stand up, here you have the little dog, like my dog. This is my dog.
Perfect.
So we have this dog standing on the table, and if he bends down a little bit, what do? We hike up the neck.
Right.
He wants to sit down, we hike. No, stand up, stand up, stand
Yeah.
up. Well, what do we do when we train a dog to sit? You pull up on a leash
Right,
and you kind of
exactly.
tickle their back end down.
Yep.
You're asking him two different things. You're
Right.
asking him to stand and sit at the same
Yep.
time. Pressure on the neck, when you have that loop all the way up and tight and there's no slack, you're actually putting their anatomy at an
Yeah.
angle, and they're not
Yeah.
built like that. They're built so that they're horizontal.
Very
That's
uncomfortable
their
on
natural
their
way.
neck and their spine.
Yeah, if they put their neck way up, that just means we're tall and they're looking at us. But
Mhm.
in their own real environment, they're not going to be just
Mm-mm.
craning their neck all the time. They don't. This will get you less positive responses than just letting
Right.
them relax down a little bit.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
only make them stand as long as I need to do those parts that they need to be standing for. And otherwise, and this is for every dog, I let puppies sit, lay down. It doesn't matter. I can work around them as long as they're happy and they're not in pain or stressed out. You can be where you want to be. And sometimes that makes my life a little harder, but I've learned to just go with it.
Well, I've heard
and I can
groomer.
relate to that whole standing for a long time, because
Yeah.
it's not just
Me
that we're
too.
asking
Yeah.
them to stand, we're asking them to stand very still in a
Right.
way that
Right.
is not natural.
Yeah.
And if you've ever done any like canine conditioning classes or anything where they're working toward trying to teach dogs to have this good muscle tone, that's actually an exercise.
Right.
Is to stand, and to
It's a
stand
lot of work to
square,
stand
Right.
still
and
for
stand
that long.
still.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's actually exercise, and a lot of these older dogs, especially, can't do it.
Yeah.
But they'll try. A lot of them they've spent their whole life thinking that this is the way we do it, and trying to get them to sit or lie down. They're like, nope, I don't do that.
Yep.
So I give them more breaks.
Right.
You know, like, listen, I know I can't get you to sit or lie down on my table, so I'm going to give you another little break, take you out again, another little break.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I have a question for you guys, because I think we all kind of do things differently as a dog starts to go blind or as a dog starts to go deaf. But for the dogs that are blind, when they start going blind, for me, I start putting them on the table and guiding a paw up to the edge so that they can kind of feel like where the edges of the table are. Just to kind of help them figure out like where they are in the world, because I can imagine being like blindfolded, like, okay, I'm up high and it seems familiar, but just one of the things I kind of got in the habit of doing is like guiding a paw up to the front edge and to a side and to a side. And if they're really large, I'll do like a back edge too. And they calm down a lot. But what do you guys do? Do you guys have any?
It depending on the size of the dog. The bigger ones I'll do on the floor, just because I can't catch them if they're going to fall off, so they're going to be on the floor. The smaller ones, I tend to use a belly band, because it keeps them centered on the table more. I only have 2 that are blind, and they've been with me for, oh my God, their whole lives pretty much. And because of how I do high group, I always have a hand on the dog. No matter what's going on, there's always a hand on the dog. And I tend to not reach for them. If they're blind, I don't just reach from, oh my God, here I come, to your head. I go from their back up to their head with my hand, so they know where it's coming from. But I also tend to do that on all my dogs. So it's hard because I've done geriatric dogs and senior dogs for so long that it's just second nature to me. So I do it to all of them.
And sometimes you can't break it down.
Yeah.
You've done it for so long. People are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just do it like that. And they're like, okay, break it down. Okay, first I do this, then I do. You have to really think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when
I do
teaching,
so many
that's
of these.
The hardest part for me is breaking it down into, well, what are you doing? Well, first of all, there's always a hand on the dog. And secondly, I say warn the dog where I'm going by starting from, their shoulder and going down to their foot instead of just grabbing a foot from nowhere. And if they're blind, then that's terrifying, I would assume.
Yeah, I think a lot of us who follow that same thing do that with sighted dogs anyway.
Yeah.
You ask permission, you run your handle on their body. It is a permission kind of thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have the privilege, I guess, of living with a blind man.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. And it does change things a little bit when you are confronted with that day in and day out. So I do have a sympathy for all my blind patients. I do. One that is blind, he is a Shih Tzu, and his eye sockets aren't big enough to hold his regular sized eye. So his regular sized eye looks like a marble sitting on top of his skull. So you've got to be really careful of the eye as well. But he's very elderly as well. So I've come to really like 2 products from the same company, Trach Saver. And
I love that. Yep. I just
groomer
more
wall.
of those, actually.
And you don't have to invest in a wall. If you just want to push your grooming table up against the wall, that's fine. We just have 6 tables smashed in our little room, and they're kind of pointed at each other. So it just helps that we can move that wall around, because we can't really finagle our tables around that well. But I think that if they have something to lean on, if they feel like they can rest in a confined space, then they don't feel so open.
Right.
But it's different for every dog, I've noticed. One blind dog, just like one blind person, is not like the next blind dog or blind person. They each have their quirks. Some are old, have been groomed their whole life, and they will stand fairly still on the table as long as they're not senile. They're like, okay, I know what this means. Okay, we'll do this. Other ones have lost their mind, and they're just like, ah!
Yeah.
And those are the ones you have to kind of restrain a little bit.
And
I do want to put a caution out there to people who help big elderly dogs onto the table, and also little dogs that they want to hold them up with the belly band. And I know the one you're talking about, and it's really wide, and that's nice. But some people don't do that. When you lift a large dog up on the table and you don't use their pelvic structure, get your hand under those private parts. Don't be ashamed. Get them. That's where you lift the dog, not under the belly, especially when they get older. Their organs are very delicate. So you could really be rupturing them if you're putting all that pressure on the belly. Even the little dogs, if you try and make them stand the entire time by putting a block under them or lifting them up, and your band is not wide enough, literally you are compressing their organs. They can't breathe, they can't digest, they can't eliminate. That's not good for them.
And many of these older dogs have lumps and bumps and masses that the vet is looking after. We had a Cocker Spaniel in today with like a big lump about this big, like under her belly. And, I think that sometimes we kind of forget that there's a lot going on inside that we're not seeing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So just retrain yourself, perhaps. For those dogs that are compromised, do the back end first, and then let those poor puppies just sit their butt down, and don't worry about making them stand. And I've heard this, every time I say this, there's always one in a class. Well, I care about the way the groom comes out. Well, stop it. Stop doing that. Yeah. If they're so ancient that they can't stand,
then who cares?
Then you don't have to make them beautiful. You have to make them comfortable and respect their limits.
Yeah.
That's it transitions from I'm pretty. You know what? Just give me a bath. Make me not be mad at.
To the owners about that. And some owners are like, well, you've been shaving his feet for his whole life. Why are we suddenly now not doing it? And then you just have to find a way to communicate that to the owner that, he can't do it anymore. And that comes down to the same thing Chrissy was saying earlier. Sometimes they just don't know. They don't realize.
I had a lady come in, and she's an older lady, and she's got really bad arthritis in her hands. And she wanted this new standard poodle puppy put into an actual puppy cut, because eventually it's going to go into a continental, not a show dog, not show quality. However, that's what she wanted with her dog. And as they progressed through their life, he absolutely couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't do the continental, couldn't do anything. And of course, mind you, she's had bad arthritis his whole life. And I said, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to a kennel, and it's going to be cat paw from here on out. And she's like, I don't understand that. I'm like, asking him to do that is like asking you to go out and garden. She can't. It's impossible. I'm like, he's with
Yeah.
you now. He's the same as you. And she's like, it dawned on her. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they get arthritis too. I'm like, they
Yeah.
absolutely do. It just didn't even occur to her. She knew it
Right.
intellectually, but she had not grasped it on a
Exactly.
mental level. She just couldn't get
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I was listening to The Ruffin. You guys familiar with that podcast? But Caitlin mentioned she tells her customers that it's not like going to the hair salon like we do. It's more like a yoga class.
Mhm.
And I've found that a lot of owners, like, that was a breakthrough for them. Like, oh, yeah, they're not just sitting in a chair. I wouldn't want to be standing up and doing yoga for an hour if I didn't feel good, or if my joints were sore, or, you know. But I found that really helps owners understand that they're not just sitting in a chair, getting a
Right.
nice spa day, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of owners don't notice it. And I don't know about you guys, if you guys kind of notice the same thing, but about every 6 months when a dog gets older, about every 6 months, it's like they're in a new body. Like for us, it's about every 5 years.
Yeah.
But I find for the older dogs, as they get older, it's about every 6 months. You're seeing some dramatic change that I think we as groomers are more likely to see, because we see them a couple of times during that 6 months versus their owners. Their owners might not notice it.
Right. Yep.
We also have to worry about temperature, not letting them get too cold. I know that's kind of, you know, we don't want them getting too hot. We don't want them getting too cold. I try to get them dry as soon as I can. You know, I don't want them necessarily sitting in a crate wet, unless they cannot handle, you know.
Unless if the environment is warm and cozy, then they absolutely can sit on a towel damp. But the cold and hot factor, there was a whole to-do, not the first one, not the last, in one of the groups, about heated cage dryers. Oh my gosh, they're Satan. Oh, they're just the devil. I'm like, I use them every day, and I do a bunch of old dogs. It's how you use a tool.
Right, exactly.
I'm not going to crank it on high and just leave them and never go check on them ever again. The cage dryers we have are in 30-minute increments, and you can turn them all the way off, or they have 3 other different heat settings. So it's not that you don't want to kill a dog because you overheat them. You also don't want to kill a dog because you chill them to death either.
Right.
So you have to be very aware of your ambient temperature when you have wet dogs. A lot of shops open up the back door when it's winter time or when it's cold outside to turn off the air and let some fresh air in or whatever. And I have been in so many salons where that back door's open, they got wet dogs, and they're all just going, like close the door. Pay attention, because they're not there for your comfort. And it's sad to say, and I like comfort. I like to be comfortable, and I'm menopausal and a hot flash and everything else. But I'm here to tell you, I'll go through all of that. If I see somebody all shivery, I'm snatching them up and putting them somewhere better, or drying them myself. You know, you just have to pay attention to your client. And although the mama pays, they don't pay if you kill their dog or if you hurt it.
Right.
Yep. And they're just so much more susceptible to not being able to regulate their body temperature like they could when they were young.
Yes. Which is also
sort of like the puppies for the same reason.
Don't strip them down. Don't strip them down unless you absolutely have to. Older dogs, like Chrissy was saying, they can't regulate their temperature. So if you take a layer of hair away, or you just shave them with a 7, because they've always been shaved with a 7, that older dog probably needs to go to a 4 or a 2, rather than be shaved down, because they just end up being a sack of bones, and there's no fat, and they get frailer and frailer and frailer, and they have no fat to regulate temperature. So or
the opposite, which is the dogs that get heavier and heavier and heavier over time, and people are like, oh, it's okay, he won't be cold, but he may still really be cold.
And they'll suffocate him while he's being cold with all the fat around his neck.
But let's see, what else do we have for older dogs? How about deafness? You know,
deafness is very much like blindness in the fact that you have to relay all your intention with touch, because they're not listening to you. So just keep your hand on them.
So I started doing this when my last girl, when she was getting a little bit deaf at the end of her life, and now I just do it with deaf dogs that I work with. But I teach them that, like, a clap, 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 stomp, 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 but not just like clapping, but like one that means specifically, I need your attention.
Mhm.
So it's sort of like her name went from being Isa to clap, 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 you know? So that pattern now means orient to find somebody.
Mhm.
And just being able to tap on a cage door on the
Mhm.
floor of a crate and have
Just you
them
can
kind of go,
feel it.
oh, somebody needed me, you know, and to orient to us
Mhm.
can make a big difference for some of these dogs. Mostly it's if they get stressed or scared, if we can prevent them from becoming stressed or scared, they can handle the grooming better. But once they get stressed or scared, their body doesn't really handle that either, you know?
Right.
So if we can help them feel comfortable with all of the crazy things that they've been used to, but now we need to modify, you know?
Yeah,
But
because it's all, now that they can't see or they can't hear, it's not the same anymore.
yeah,
It's not the
yeah.
usual grooming routine. Their whole life is turned upside down, and they just don't. It's not that they don't remember. It's just that it's literally not the same anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, they're trying to figure out their world again. And car rides are scarier for some of these older dogs. They're a little bit blind, a little bit deaf, and they're like, I don't even know where I am. And
You
every
can't move
season has
around.
its own scent,
Yeah.
you know? So even though it's like, oh, it's the grooming shop, because I recognize the scent of the grooming shop, but every season has its own scent, you know, that we're not really aware of. We can't even
Right.
comprehend what dogs smell.
No,
We can try, but
I wish we could. Yeah.
let's see. I had a list and I didn't write it down. It's not near me. It's someplace.
So when you are doing any elderly dog, any dog should have a disclaimer. What do you call it? A thing
Waiver?
that you write on? Yes, a waiver. A
Yes.
waiver. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
I forget
Yeah.
words. I'm sorry. So every dog should have a waiver in your shop. You should have like a general, if your dog dies, if your dog gets cut, if your dog has a seizure, blah, blah, blah. These are the protocols, da, da, da. Well, an elderly dog needs that, and you need to be very specific. They need to have a number where they are absolutely will answer you when you call them. It's no, oh, well, I was in a meeting. No, you will be on call for every moment that I have your elderly dog under my care. In case something should happen, you can meet me at the vet. Number one. Number two, bring a blanket or a toy so that they can smell in case they do have a seizure or they do become disoriented. They have something from home that they can smell and get their sense of equilibrium.
Yeah.
So those two things are really important. And make sure your client understands that they may be called at any given moment to whisk the dog away or just stop the groom in the middle and take them home. That is so important. So important. And just as much as important as discussing a pain control protocol for when the dog goes home. And sometimes for one before you get it groomed as well. Or you're just not going to get anything done. The dog's just going to be in horrifying pain and it's not worth it. So at that point in time, you may be able to refer that particular client and animal to a veterinary groomer who, if they're that near the end of their life and mom is still trying to cling on a little bit or whatever, if something should happen, at least there is a team that can whisk the dog from the grooming area and then resuscitate if necessary or work on the dog. So, I mean, there are so many options. There's no dog that you absolutely have to do. So if you don't feel capable or you look at the dog and you're like, I don't know if I want to do that, then don't.
Right.
Don't start something. You're not proving anything. We're not extra prouder of you if you get the dog done against your will. You know,
Lori's back.
So just make sure that this is something that you're okay. I can do this. I can accept this, and you have confidence yourself about handling that elderly dog.
Yeah.
Well, and one of those examples of elderly dogs too that I think we see a lot are the elderly dogs that have a shake, the tremor.
Yeah.
You know, and you're trying to do something detailed, and these are another point where you have to tell owners sometimes, like, I'm just going to let this go. We're not going to do, you know, the way we used to do with the eyes. We're going to do it with a different tool, or we're going to take his ears differently. I'm not going to edge your schnauzer ears like I used to, you know, whatever it is, as an example, you know. But you think about like those tiny details, and sometimes it helps to tell an owner that they're asking us to trim a millimeter of hair. You know, like something so tiny on a
Mhm.
dog that's vibrating, you
Yeah.
know, and they cannot stop. I know that for a lot of groomers that really like makes us nervous.
Yeah.
Not
You
only
know?
that, when you put up a dog when you're all done and then you see something on it that you missed, but it's that old dog that's all shaky, leave it, leave it, leave it,
Yep.
leave it, leave it,
Yeah,
leave
it's
it,
okay. It's
leave
gonna be
it,
all right.
leave it.
And if you're having a hard time communicating that to the owner, and the owner is still very much, no, I really want you to do it this way. Everybody has a cell phone with a video camera. Video what's actually happening and how that dog is shaking, and sometimes that's what it needs for the owner for it to hit home for the owner. Is they need to actually, because they're not in there with you. Well, I suppose some places maybe they are, but
House call, they are.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not always,
you
but
know, if they're
often.
not there with you seeing it happen, they don't most people don't have any idea what you're doing to their dog and what it takes to do it. So sometimes just doing a little video of that dog just vibrating is enough.
I think we have a question down here, or just a statement. How about just the fear of touch? The fear of touch is actually tied well into fear recovery at that point. That is another, I think Chrissy will agree, that's another realm of what we do. Not necessarily tied to elderly, but tied to a lot of other things too. That just makes you have to acclimate them. I can't say the whole word. I don't know what's going on with me tonight.
Oh, gosh.
Time for a snack. When my words stop working,
Wow.
it means I need a snack.
Right. Well, I just ate, so I don't have any.
You're doing better than me.
Great. But yeah, that's just simply acclimating them to your touch, to your technique, to your ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you've spent like your years grooming them, being really mindful about how you handle them and building trust, because we want them to not just put up with grooming, but to feel like it's safe. A lot of the time they don't become dogs that are really scared, even as their body changes. So we can prevent a lot of that by thinking about that long before they're difficult to groom.
Right.
And not to get far into behavior, but I know I could carry on. I'll stop. But I think that, right. But I think that it's really easy for us as groomers to see a dog that's letting us get our job done and not notice that the dog is still having a hard time. And so sometimes that dog has been afraid the whole time, and now they're old and their hip hurts, and now suddenly they're like, I'm having none of it. You know, and we can avoid a lot of that by building that trust early on and be really just thinking about how to help them have a better time so that it's not scary.
Yeah, I designate a groomer who is not mindful. It's not a bad groomer. They're just not, they have to learn the skill of mindfulness. What I call them is efficient. I call that syndrome efficient groomer syndrome, where they're they're in a focus and they're getting the dog done and they have to get all the nails done. And a lot of times we just don't notice that the dog is having some stress until it starts acting up. I know. And
I've been there.
Yeah.
We all have.
I know a groomer who had a dog on her table with the forced air cone on the hose, and the dog is wide open, panting. Really hard.
Wow. Is my microphone working?
And not even noticing it. And all she had to do was remove the cone, and the dog took it down a level. You know, and sometimes you just have to reach in to a colleague and just say, oh, why don't you try this? And then throw the cone behind you.
Yeah.
You know? And just see how that goes. And literally I've had people go, oh, they're fine. No, they're not.
Right.
So you just have to be super mindful of what you're looking at on your table.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook.
And if you
I was just saying we have a Facebook user. I'm not sure who you are, but it says that a lot of the groomers who no longer take their older dogs, she's actually gained them as request dogs. Which you see a lot. You know, I personally think it's okay that if you can't work with an older dog, send them off to somebody who can, you know, and that's the biggest thing. Let your ego out the door. You know, it doesn't mean you are a bad groomer, but send them, you know, hey, Chrissy, I need you to work with this dog because your knowledge is a little more advanced for the older dogs than mine. And it's 100% okay to pass those dogs on.
Or to pass that dog to a different style of groomer.
Yes.
Meaning, like,
Yes.
sometimes people think, oh, I think he'd be happier at home. And I'm like, at home, I'm doing straight through. At a grooming shop, he gets little breaks. They can arrange their day differently, unless you'd like me to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and then continue grooming your dog. I mean, I'm open to that. But I can't do the same kind of, like, space it out through like a 4-hour morning the way that a shop could. So I think sometimes saying like, hey, maybe a grooming van would be a perfect fit for you. And here's a groomer that I know who has a grooming van, and help them find the next professional that's going to fit their needs better.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Cat Samard, we will send you all the old, fearful, blind, can't stand tongue hanging out. We know you love them, and we love you for it.
I love those guys.
I forgot about the tongue hanging out. That's up there with the shakes and the wiggles and the tongues hanging out.
After you put the dog up and they're old and elderly, the reason I tell you don't get them back out, even if you notice something, is because you will cut them. Hands down, swear to God, it's not worth it. That's when it
happens.
Yep. That's when it happens. When they're all done and you don't have anything wrong and you did everything correct and the dog's not injured and you're getting ready to have your lunch and you notice that one little stray hair on the lip, he'll lick the scissors. Every time. Every stupid time. Just don't do it. Don't do it. And then if they say something like, you know what, we're going to catch that next time around. Bye. I'll see you later.
And sometimes too, I think you see that last thing, but that dog's endurance run of what they can handle today has been met.
Yep.
Right.
They've handled the whatever time frame, and from here on out, it's just gonna, So we need to be thinking about that too. That they just can't handle more.
Right. And I will say that I want to circle back to what Katie said. So I apologize coming in 30 minutes late there, but I came in when she said videoing owner dogs. So I had a client who she gets a actual Bichon head. Those ears are blended and very beautiful. However, the dog now vibrates that you don't know if your eye's twitching or if it's the dog. And I specifically had this client, it used to be done perfect. Now it's not. I don't understand. So I actually did that. I took a video and I said, this is what your dog does now. It's okay because we will work with him, but you can no longer have what he used to get when he was a puppy because he vibrates. And she's like, okay.
Exactly.
I can't believe you even get it round in the first place. I'm like, thank you. So
that's awesome.
It's really nice working with the clients, but the old mans are my passion. And the old girls.
I love the old dogs too.
It's like they get cuter and cuter and cuter.
No.
I will take an old geriatric, decrepitude having, yelling, screaming old dog over a puppy any day. I don't know why, but I have all the patience in the world for the old ones when they act like that, but when it's a puppy, I'm like, nope.
Oh, I love the
My
puppies
other
and the
one-
adolescents
Puppies
just as
too,
much.
because I see a puppy and I'm like, I'm gonna turn you into that dog that knows exactly what to do. That's where it starts,
Yeah. Bring on the challenges. I love it.
Poor things.
But
it's
as they get older, they just get
it's hard to
cuter
be a
and
dog
cuter.
nowadays, man. It is.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
So something else I wanted to mention, like I said, I had a list and then I didn't put it in front of me. I really like paw mats. And especially for some of these older dogs, having something that's squishy under their toes. Sometimes their legs are just starting to slip on some of our tables. Just giving them something that's grippy, whether that be in the tub or on the table or on the floor. If you're doing them on the floor, like a extra large dog and you're doing them on the floor, but just giving them something they can really like just kind of sink into. And before I got paw mat, I was just using yoga mats, but they last about a week. They get ripped to shreds. But just something that gives them a little bit more security. And for some dogs, that's enough to help settle them down because I think their legs start to slip and they get really scared and it hurts.
I mean, we've got tabletops that are all like they have a texture on them.
It's like an anti-fatigue mat that you're standing on all day.
Right.
Why shouldn't they be standing on one too?
Right.
Yeah.
Did you? I listening in and everything. What about the larger breeds with all they get that joint, especially like the Newfies and
where they twist in or out.
they're twisting in or twisting out, the hounds that have those, or especially Bassets. And how awkward that gets for them, and you're trying to
Yeah, they don't bend anymore.
Right.
When you want to pull up their paw to do the nails or whatever, they don't bend like that anymore. You're just like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
you know, yeah.
And then
Go ahead, Katie.
I learned to take the paw from the front instead of trying to bending it under or whatever. I just take it and I clip them from the front. But that's another one of those things.
And I've had to give up my big dogs here lately. I'm a big dog myself, an old big dog.
Yeah.
And I've stopped having to, but when I still did large dogs, I actually put my hand, if you're looking at the back end of a dog, the hand that you don't use the clippers with, you put in between their back legs.
Yep.
And they sit right on my shoulder.
Yep.
So I can actually extend their leg out without them having to bend it and still do the nails. After 35 years of doing that, we're done.
Yeah.
I often have one leg on the table and
I
have
do
them
too.
able to rest on my knee.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna age out of that soon. Just saying.
Laura's
gonna keep booking the big ones for me.
It's
those
not
days a
age
week.
out of it. You've leveled up.
I've leveled up.
Okay.
Right.
Terminology. You leveled
I'm all
up.
leveled up. I'm on my legendary points right now.
So,
But if you can get a knee under them, sometimes that helps them feel secure, and you know how much pressure they're putting on it. So even though we're talking about like, not being underneath their belly a whole lot, like just helping them steady out. And some of the large dogs, like the Newfies and stuff on the floor, if I can get them to just put their foot on my knee when my knee's on the floor, I can get those nails because it raises it just a couple inches.
Right.
Just a couple of inches for me to be able to use a clipper around it, and they can still be pressing down as hard as they want. It's my knee. Who cares?
Yeah. One of the things.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, having them just lie down like Kat said on the side. I'm to the point now, though, at my age, I don't want to get down on the floor that low anymore.
I can't get back up.
It's harder to get up.
I hear ya.
I get stuck down there with them. So.
I'm about to the point where if a brush falls off my table, it lives there until somebody else picks it up. And then when they put it on my table, I go, "Oh, thank you. I did not notice that."
It's one of those side eyes. You're like, "Did anyone else notice? Please, someone else notice."
We're gonna start putting strings on them like little kid mittens. Throw it, retract it.
Hey, that's a good way to use the flexi leads.
We
can convert those over
and it retrieves your brush.
Tie on the stuff and just say, "Oh, press the button."
But I agree with Dara and the Facebook user. I actually like to, when I start seeing the bigger dogs starting to get, shaky and arthritic, I start teaching them to lay down on their side before they have issues. So by the time they have those issues, I'm like, "Oh, we're laying on the floor." And I have not leveled up yet to deny those dogs yet, but I am noticing that when I'm down there, I'm like, "Oh God," I kind of take a second to stand up.
It's your turn to carry the torch.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Pass them on to me. I'm still on that level. I haven't leveled up yet.
Too true.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier before you were on about trying to teach them how to be on their side, trying to teach them to lie down, and that you don't need to stand all the time on the table, and then trying to teach ourselves that we don't need to have a dog to stand the entire time.
Right.
And I know most of your salons are probably set up already, like everything's within arm's reach or whatever. But if you know you're going to have that elderly client walking in, like if you're mobile or home groom or whatever, you know what you're up against, and you plan accordingly. But in a salon, we're so used to having everything at arm's reach, and this is where it goes, and this is where it goes, or whatever. You would be surprised at just planning a little bit ahead for your elderly client. Get a couple of towels, put them on your table. Get everything right there, and prepare for that one dog. Even if you have to put everything back when you're done,
absolutely,
that will make that groom go so much smoother if it's just right there.
Yeah. And a special towel for their drool if they're a drooler, and if they pee, be ready for cleaning up
Yep.
pee and poop, because some of these older dogs just cannot hold it, you know.
Yeah. And even the dogs that just naturally pee in general. Like I have the same Bichons. One of them is super old. The other one likes to pee outside the kennel on top of its brother. You know, so we just prepare.
Yeah,
We prepare.
exactly.
Don't pee on the older one. He's hard to groom.
That is a true story.
Yeah, it is.
You can't make it up.
No, you really can't.
And guess
And
who
he-
don't get to hang out together after they're done?
And he only pees on his brother.
He has to stay clean until he walks out the front door. After that, she does not care.
Yeah, that's it. Don't touch his head.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, and I think too, sometimes the older dogs, just thinking about some of the weird, quirky things that older dogs do. Some of them bark when they're deaf and they don't even know that they're barking anymore. But we still should try to like help calm them down, because sometimes that's panic barking. And I think that, you know, we need to kind of be aware and, you know, like, hey, this is another time when you need to come and just pick up your dog. You know, like he cannot handle this if he doesn't have hands on him, or sometimes even if they do have hands on them and they're just like,
yeah,
You have to imagine
They're stressing
with
themselves
every
out.
bark, he's releasing more and more cortisol into his system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if he is cushingoid or adenoid, that is the worst thing that you could do. He
His
has
heart
to be
rate's
calm.
going up.
Yeah, the
His
blood
pressure's
pressure, the whole
going
nine.
up.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
so is everybody around you that has to listen to it.
Exactly.
Earplugs. We
Yeah.
we wear ear protection while we groom.
Yes.
Well, a lot of those dogs that we know are going to be difficult in some way or have those issues, we invite them before the shop opens. We'll open up special at 7 or 7:30. Those dogs are done and out before the first real actual client comes in for the day. So I mean, that just cuts it out. It just makes everything easier.
And I would also, if you groom weekends, tell them like, this is not a busy weekend dog. I'm very sorry. This we're gonna have to make some other arrangements. You know, if that's your busiest day of the week, that dog shouldn't be listening to other dogs barking and like the You know, I remember we used to book them for like a Wednesday morning. You know, midweek, first thing, and you know, one particular job, we're like, that's quiet time. Those were our quiet animals that we'd book. That's when we'd book a cat or two. You know, like the Wednesday morning, make that a quiet time as best you can. There's always like one that's gonna throw it off, but
right.
But I think sometimes we're like, oh, he's deaf, he doesn't know, but he could be really working himself up. And that's when seizures happen and strokes happen and heart attacks happen and you know.
And if your dog is quietly laying in a kennel and you're going about your business waiting for him to be picked up and he changes behavior of any kind, not just gets up and goes around and then lays down on his other side, but changes behavior, starts barking, starts pacing in the kennel, starts panting really hard before when he was resting, and now this is a different behavior. You need to snag that dog out of a kennel, give it some fresh air, make sure that it's trying to tell you, okay, something's different. So if you figure out that something internal is happening, or he's bleeding from the mouth, or whatever it is, that change of personality quickly will alert you, okay, you need to start paying attention to that dog and either call the vet, call the mom, call somebody, do something, do your thing.
Absolutely.
Which does remind me.
Oh, sorry. How about just noticing yourself? There might not be anything going on with the dog other than just the sense of having that older dog on your table, and they might just be standing there, but you yourself are starting to get stressed or anxious and not even realizing it. You know, I might be holding your breath or just grinding your teeth because you're trying to get it done. So being aware of yourself as well.
There was a guy that was training an apprentice groomer, and he didn't even notice it. But when he got frustrated, he would growl at the dog. Not growl at the dog like intentionally, but he'd be trying to do something. He'd go, and the dog is like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "Oh my goodness!" He goes, "How do I stop doing that?" I'm like, "Only you know that is. You gotta stop that." You know, the dog is taking that in a whole different context. Yeah, he would just get so frustrated. I'm like, every time you get that frustrated, you put the dog away. Go outside, get some fresh air, go to the
Take a
restroom,
break.
wash your face, do something.
Have a Snickers.
Yeah.
And we had a Facebook user here mention have them lay on their side and chew a bone if they have the really crooked legs. And sometimes having something to chew on or to lick at or something to be doing can be really helpful. Yeah.
I have a client who has a corgi and its legs were they're just malformed so badly that the dog crawls like this on the floor, and it's one of the legs is kind of unmovable. It doesn't even unfold anymore. So what we did, if she's not there to help me lift so I can get underneath the dog during the bath or whatever, you can get a big squishy, like a plushie, not like a plastic beach ball, but a big ball, a plushie ball. And sometimes if you put that right on their chest, it's not hurting them, but it fits right between those front legs. And as Chrissy was saying, just high enough that you can get that clipper in there and see what you're doing, from that angle, because she can't really lay down. She's just all malformed. So you just have to look outside the box, be creative. Don't be afraid to roll up 5 towels and put them strategically wherever they need to be. Maybe you have to sit on the table and the dog has to lay on the floor. That's sometimes how it has to be. And sometimes you miss spots. And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to be okay with all of that.
Sometimes you have to prioritize that not a bath today. Today's a haircut day, and another day could be a bath day, or another day could be a nail trim day. And so, did want to mention hammocks because I know those have become really popular, and I don't have any real strong feelings either way. As long as a hammock is being used to help that dog feel safer. So if that is helping that dog feel more comfortable and feel safe and secure, and for some of them it does, and for others, it's terrifying. But I know that's a useful tool for us to even think about. Can I just have this help hold the dog up and their little legs can dangle? If you're not familiar with the hammock that I'm talking about, it's sort of like a strip of fabric with like 4 little leg holes.
And then you hoist them up.
And suspended from a grooming arm. Just be really mindful that for some dogs that can be terrifying. And we don't want to use a tool simply to get things done. If we're using that tool, we want to use it so that that dog feels safer. And I have had dogs that were like, I have one owner that uses that to help hold their dog up, but she's holding the dog with it. And we just do
the only things that I have against the hammock, and I know you always get flack for expressing your own opinion, so that's all it is. It's my opinion and my experience. That's all I got. But I don't like the hammock for several reasons. I will name them, and it's nothing against the tool itself. I know that every tool can be used, but I'm of a certain age, a level, if you will, that I do things the way I do them, and they really work for me, and I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So the things that I don't like about the hammock is exactly what Chrissy just said. You cannot communicate with the dog that is under your power completely. They have to be able to make good decisions. They have to be able to. If they're senile or whatever, I get it. I have those. I get it. However, also with the older dogs, you can absolutely hurt their insides even when using the hammock. That pressure, like a bulldog. Imagine the denseness of an old bulldog being put in the hammock. That's just not enough support for that huge, bulky body that's really dense. So really think about who you're using those tools on.
And that goes right back to comfort. Do I think this dog is going to be comfortable in this tool, whatever the tool is,
I've talked to several clients also, and not necessarily my clients, but just people who have dogs who've been to grooming salons, who's whatever. And so many people are disturbed by the sight of their dog in a hammock. Now, I know you hammock users out there are gentle. You're not mean. No one is taking you there. No one's going to that place. However, perceived value sometimes it is just so overwhelming and powerful. If you do use it, I would hope that you would let the client know that you do have that tool in back for their dog. And this is how it works, so they are informed about something, if something should happen. And always make sure that you get those installed correctly if you have the overhang ones that are attached to the ceiling, because you will absolutely injure a dog, yourself, your salon, break things if it's not installed correctly with some of these heavier dogs.
Well,
absolutely.
With the older dogs, communication with the owners. It's crucial in any stage, but it's extremely crucial with the older people.
Absolutely.
With the older dogs, because of exactly what you said. Perception it's a different thing. So to a non-trained groomer eye, we might look like we're just gung-ho and abusing this dog when
we're Mangala. Are you kidding me? We're horrified.
Yeah.
Why is that dog screaming?
Right.
He walked in the door.
Yeah.
And I want to know too, because I didn't do anything with him yet.
And a good story for perception, and just a good way to communicate with the owners. I had an old golden retriever that I set on the floor to groom, and he was so impacted. So I was pulling the hair with my fingers, and I'm laughing with the other groomer. I'm like, oh my God, look at how impacted he is. The woman thought I was ripping hair off and thought it was funny. Now, mind you, this was 15 years ago, but you better believe 15 years ago, I've learned my lesson to make sure you communicate with the owners so they don't think that I'm just ripping hair out.
Because that's what it looks like.
It absolutely looks like that. And had I not learned that all those years ago, who knows all the other things that I would have been doing that just looks awful, but it's not, and and I'm sitting on the floor, the dog's completely calm, but you're right. I'm plucking that little tufts off, Yeah. So lesson learned.
Do you think this gets done?
Right.
I use my mind.
Did you not know I'm in that level?
Facebook user
that just rinses all the mats off.
We have a Facebook user that says any old pet must have the owner in the driveway or sit in the lobby, and the vet office knows the pet and that stuff. That's a really good policy to have.
That is,
yeah.
That's Pat, and she is. Let me find a way to say this. She is ultra meticulously mindful about
excellent.
I did it. She is meticulously mindful of her elderly clients. Absolutely. I've spent time in her salon with her. I know her, and she's pretty amazing. She's pretty amazing.
Excellent.
I think she's pretty meticulous about everything.
Yeah, she really is. She really cares, and she has an eye for detail, and no detail is too small when it comes to her babies at all. Yes, that's you, Kat. Yeah.
So we are at the 1 hour and a little bit over, and I am still here, even though my camera is yelling at me that it's not. So I am not sure what's going on with that, but I'm still here, so that's a good thing.
That's good.
Any closing remarks, or do you want me to go into what we're doing next week?
Before we do that, because we had a interesting starting, can we just quickly go over what we covered in the Master Groomers? Do we have time?
Oh, yes. I was going to ask about that also. Michelle,
yes.
Would you like to do that? Thank you, Lori.
I would. Let me pull up our minutes so I can just run through them really quickly.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes,
that's usually my spiel in the morning. I mean, in the beginning, except for I couldn't get in.
Neither could I. I wonder if you and I, because we're both admins, are canceling each other out somehow.
Maybe. I think so.
Okay,
maybe you need an admin with connectivity.
Okay, so we are the motion was put forward to put voting and discussion on the floor for product usage diagram or guide, just a very simple one, because how many questions do we get in this industry? What shampoo should I use? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're not going to do it by brand name. We're going to do it by ingredient. So everybody understands. So that's something that we're all going to work on and put together. We discussed a mobile category, which I think is in the works. And there's somebody that is assigned to maybe do some research and put forth a paper so that we can have some verbiage to vote on. Mm-hmm. And then we're putting to the voting floor and or discussing instructions on how to disinfect bathing systems. We have a little blurb in the safety and sanitation, but not enough that I think you could use it as a guide. And that's what we would like. Right. We go over the disinfecting and sanitation procedures and make sure they're lined out properly. Angie Coates had a hand in that. And while she is super thorough, I think that got kind of condensed. And maybe we need to expand that out now that we have the first edition so that it includes all those little details. Because I would like somebody to be able to go there and say, well, what's the protocol for that? And be able to copy it.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one is how not to mix chemicals like bleach and vinegar. And then Jessica also wants to change the verbiage to 3 days from 1 week in her sanitation for towels. And I just wrote these down as little minute blurbs. So if you watch the video, you'll see what these pertain to. We are also working on a feline section. So there's somebody who's very interested in doing that. I also think that Melissa Conti-Diener also wants to do that. So I may have them collab on that. And also to really outline a top knot and bow protocol. So that when a client would read that, they would understand that it's not supposed to stay in for 6 to 8 weeks until the next.
You're like talking about top knot bow, ear bow, that sort of thing.
Wow. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it stays so nice once it's matted.
Or attached to
I just put another bow on top of it when it flops over. It's great.
It's decorative.
Yes.
Those are some really great topics.
Okay. Kat, could you add products to disinfect in that same thing? Yes, we are going over all that. Make sure you make it to the quarterly meetings so that you can add what you want in there. Unless you put it into as a file, it will absolutely get overlooked. Okay. And it's very hard for me to take about 14 to 22 different little Word documents and then transfer them over to the master group. So just put everything in the files of the master group, make a post out of it, and our group will save it so that everybody has access to all those things so we can discuss.
It's a great group. Yeah.
Can we put a link in there for that too, for people who are listening later?
Absolutely.
The master groomer link.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me go to it. I'll find it here. It'll take me a second, so keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just think that more people being involved in that and hashing it out. I think our industry just needs to hash things out differently. And it would be nice to have step-by-step instructions for things like sanitizing the bathing system that someone can say, hey, this is an approved system that my peers have agreed seems pretty logical and effective.
And also keep in mind that if you're joining the quarterly group, which I extremely recommend, you don't have to have a video. You know, you can sit there and listen and unmute yourself when you're ready to speak and mute it. Know that my last group, the last meeting, I was on mute with the camera off because my daughter was crying the whole time. But then I had one word. I'm like, yes, Michelle, I agree. Mute. You know?
And just be aware that we all don't agree in the council all the time.
Exactly.
It's
and that's
okay to have a different opinion. We're not asking everybody to arrive at the same conclusion. However, we have to be able to discuss the things that we don't agree on so that we can come to some sort of conclusion, or we could come to the conclusion that both techniques are valid or invalid, or we need something completely different. That is how we move forward.
Exactly.
If we're just arguing to keep doing the same things, the council's a moot point. However, if we want to move forward and come together, discussing these things from an adult perspective, a grooming perspective, a professional perspective is the most important thing. And I think we have to relearn how to talk about things objectively without emotion. You know, and some things are very emotional. I'll get emotional over, you know, pine cones falling. It happens. But I can keep that to myself while we discuss things in a professional manner, is what I'm saying. So anybody can say anything. No question is stupid. No entry is stupid. Just be prepared to make your argument. If you're saying, I think we should do things this way and I want this to happen, bring your science, bring your peer-reviewed articles, bring your experience with that particular technique. Yeah, if you've got pictures, if you've got you know, notes that you've taken, if this technique you've been using for a while and you feel like it really works and it pertains, bring it to the council. We want to know. I always want to know new stuff.
And just as important, bring your questions. Bring your questions, because somebody else out there is going to have the answer and you're not the only one with the question. So, you know,
that's what I was going to say. You probably aren't the only one with that question.
And I learn so much more if I'm talking to people with a very different point of view. Don't spend all your time talking to people who agree with you.
Right.
You know?
Well, I'm doing a class on the Mardi Gras Pet Expo that's online here coming up in June. And I'm doing something that I'm so excited about, you guys. And now that it's real, I can tell you, I'm doing the first understanding research for the groomer that's ever been out there. So I'm really going to tackle what science means, how it works, how you participate, what the scientific method is, what a peer-reviewed paper is.
Oh, that's so
all the
nice.
things that people, because we argue all the time in these groups about, well, do you have any peer-reviewed articles that say that?
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to absolutely at least give you a foundation to use those tools to create your argument. And
so needed.
Scientific method. I know, right? I'm so excited. I am so excited. When I first proposed it, they were like, oh, we don't know. And they were like, you know what? You just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. I'm like, because I'm doing it.
Oh my God. I want it. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. And hopefully I will morph that and use it and amend the Master Esthetician course that we have at Whole Pet. And it will be included in that as well, because I think it's so important.
Ooh, really?
It is.
That's new to me. We knew everything.
If you allow me, while Vera's still doing stuff, I'll read you the my notes.
And I just want to let people know that I put the link to the files for the Pet Pro educators for the Master Groomer Council.
Okay. I see it there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And while you're pulling that up, I just want to give a shout out to Crystal Ann. Look at it. Thank you, Crystal.
Yes, thank you.
We had a lot of fun. We're getting ready to come up on our 2-year anniversary next month.
I know, that's insane.
So that's exciting.
That's awesome.
All right, you ready?
So you guys have to join in on Mardi Gras because Michelle's talking, and I'm talking for Mardi Gras too.
Oh, really? You are? You're at Mardi Gras also?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for telling us, Chrissy.
This will be an introductory class about how to understand the nuances of research and peer-reviewed articles as it pertains to the grooming profession. There are many myths and rumors about what is and isn't valid research. This class will give you a working foundation of what is valid and what is not, and how to know what you're looking at when reviewing the published science information available to us. We will all be going over the working theory, peer-reviewed research, anecdotal stories, empirical observations, and the practical value of the scientific method.
Nice.
We'll be covering such things as scientific method, peer-reviewed papers, scientific theory, anecdotal evidence, clinical observation, breaking apart a study, small N research, corroborating evidence, and putting the pieces together. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yay.
So exciting.
What are you doing, Chrissy?
I think it was we hemmed and hawed about the title. I think it was fear. Is it the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Because
post that.
I gotta post that. Okay.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm joining
it.
this.
You gotta post that so everybody. I like seeing when you guys are going to shows and posting it on our pages and stuff.
Yeah.
You can post stuff on our groups too. You're not the only one who's posting.
I've been trying to remember to post like podcast episodes and things like that. So,
I'm either MIA or I'm all up in your face. You will notice.
That's true.
There's a pattern.
Michelle, I prefer you in my face.
Right?
Me.
We'd much rather have you here.
Well, I'm on an adventure. My husband's closing down his internship. We're reaching the end of that. So I don't know where the life is going to take us after that. However, while I'm waiting, I'm still learning how to transfer agar dishes for my mushrooms. Like I got agar work this evening. I've got a full-blown garden going in back.
Oh, yes.
I've started sewing again and making patterns and carrying on. So like projects are huge, but I just have to disappear, get them done. Because I also still groom full-time. And then I come back, and then I have to regroup. And I'm like, okay, I need to at least show my face.
I want you to stay on for like 2 minutes after the show, Michelle.
Okay.
Okay.
A half a minute.
Half a
I'm out of here.
MIA yet.
All right, so I'm going to drum roll for next time because April is coming up. It is going into our 2-year, and we have never done anything like what we're talking about next month. So it's hard to keep finding new topics, as Chrissy knows with her podcast. But next month, we're going to jump into, because we got 4 weeks. This is the first time we're ever going to be talking about specializing in grooming, as in grooming itself. 1 week of styles, 1 week of hand stripping, faces, and scissoring.
Nice.
So
exciting.
Please, you guys all know, not my forte. I'm happy to be behind the black curtain that you're looking at.
He's the greatest.
Is that an option?
You didn't realize I've really always been on them all. You just haven't seen me.
True.
Oh man.
Well, that sounds like a fun month. That'll be a bunch of good discussion.
Yep. So I'm going to need you guys to jump in with that because,
Okay.
My shears are down.
Oh, my very up.
Yep. So, all right. Well, I'm going
Did you say her scissors are down?
Yep. My scissors are down.
Scissors
down.
Scissors down.
She passed the torch. She's like,
hey,
she's leveled
have
up.
you leveled up?
I've leveled up. You want to know how much I've leveled up? It has been 8 weeks since I have actually stepped foot in the grooming salon.
Wow. Way to go, Lori.
Way to go, Lori.
That is huge.
Yep. I can proudly say scissors down.
I was going to say, last time you were grooming was right
That is
before Christmas.
awesome,
Right? It was
That's
right before
amazing.
Christmas that you last groomed, right?
Christmas before I last groomed. And and then moved. Lori is completely running the show.
Dara is achieving her life goals.
Yes,
I am. Woo.
Like a
It's a
boss.
lot of hard work and I'm loving it. All the way around.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
So all right. We'll chit chat next week because we'll have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a great night. Thanks for sticking with us long this night.
Thank you.
Bye.